everybody.
Hi.
Welcome.
Välkommen.
Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday, where our chat is broken.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Is it in this side or this
screen, it's that's the correct side.
That side? Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the brokenness over here.
Yeah.
We can't fix it. We tried.
Yep. It's interesting. Like anytime somebody says something, like it shows up for like a split second and then it's gone. It's kind of funny. But anyway, so hey, it's a technical difficulty. I'm not exactly sure what is going on. We looked and searched and did all kinds of stuff. We might need to get somebody who's a lot more better at IT type stuff to take a look and see what's going on. But yeah. So hey, you're wondering, Bonnie, you're wondering how much the plushies are. Right now they're $27, but they're gonna go down in price.
So don't buy them yet.
So, yes, our store, I'm guessing our store will be updated and active. I think it's already active, but it's got the old prices in there. And all the prices are going to go down. So, because we're restructuring, we set all those prices. We had this huge, me and Ryan's brother Kyle had a conversation that lasted, I think, multiple days for multiple hours each day.
Wow.
About like how are we going to price stuff so we can have free international shipping. That was our goal. Like we wanted to have free shipping around the world, right? And we were like, okay, this is going to be cool. And so then we had to kind of make sure that our prices were in line with being able to cover the cost of international shipping, which can get pretty ridiculous sometimes. But, we kind of gauged based on, what's the likelihood of this and that and the other thing and da da da. And Kyle does all these number crunching things because he's amazing like that. And so we figured out, this is our pricing for, the products based on, having to include shipping. The only issue is with the new store, shipping will not be included. So you will pay extra for shipping, but our prices will go down substantially. So probably you'll still end up paying less, unless you live in some country like way far away or whatever, where there's all kinds of weird.
What's it called? The Queen's Islands or whatever, or the Soma.
There was some place that was like, it was ridiculously expensive to ship it. And we were like, what is this? But
there's some places where it's like $80, 80 USD to ship to. Oh my gosh, it's nuts.
Yep, it was pretty wild. But yes, and Hatsu, yes, Fortnite was amazingly fun. I like playing Fortnite. It's super fun.
Yeah.
But holy cow, your cosplay was $25 just for shipping. Wow. That's a steep shipping cost, it seems to me.
It's like a quarter of the price of the outfit, probably.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. We get so spoiled because, I have Amazon Prime. And so, like, I get everything for free within 2 days, like it's free shipping and it takes 2 days to get here and it's pretty cool. But, so... Anyway,
yeah, I remember growing up, you'd like order something online. You could expect like a month or two before it ends up at your house.
Yeah.
Remember that early days?
I do remember that. I remember one of the first items I bought online was a rick.
What's a rick?
A rick.
And does it roll?
You can roll on it. You can roll with it. It's a percussion instrument. It's a hand percussion instrument. It's kind of like a tambourine, but the jingles are really, really like dark and big and thick and everything, right? And so it's like, so you play it like a hand drum. You hold it. I have it in the other room. I should just bring it out one time. But anyway, like you can play it. There's a lot of different options, right? And I needed it for a show. And so I emailed the person when I ordered it and I was like, hey, like I need this for a show and the show is coming up in like 10 days or whatever. And so can I please get it? And so then they sent it. It was so funny. They sent me the item along with a handwritten note that said, please send us a check for, $25 expedited shipping or whatever. And so it was like, this is how, things worked a lot differently. I think I ordered it online and then wrote them a check and mailed it to them, and then,
yeah.
I mean, it was crazy because like there's,
so different.
But anyway, so welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday, and this is a show we do on Wednesdays. It's all about you guys, all about what's going on for you in your lives, and we will just love to talk about it. If you have a topic you would like us to talk about, you can go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and then you'll be on your way. You can fill out the form, make sure you say that you're a human, because that's important. That's how they detect bots and stuff like that. But
right. The
yeah,
bots don't know they're not human. So
and you can't stop the bots.
That's right. But you can ask them if they're humans, and then they fail to pass the test. So that
right.
You might not stop them, but yeah, at least thwart their plans. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so go to don'tworrywednesday.com. Saule has put the link in the chat there for you guys. So you can go ahead and click that link and go and submit a topic. And we would love to talk to you. We are talk about whatever situation it is that you have. And we're not professional therapists or counselors. We're not a substitute for professional counseling in any way. We just want to be your friend. We want to help. We want to help you understand that you're not alone, that, we all go through stuff. We all have stuff that we have to handle. And it's interesting because a lot of times we get into a situation and it's like, we feel like no one's ever experienced this before. And it's possible that no one's ever experienced it quite the same nuances, quite the same details as you might be experiencing it. But what you'll find is that, the world is the world. People are people. And I think it's in the Bible, there's nothing new under the sun. Like people have experienced every bit of heartache that I've experienced, that you've experienced, all that kind of stuff. And there are ways to navigate things that are critical for, each circumstance based on, the principles and things that have happened in the past. And it's so interesting. You are a unique person. Your experiences are unique. However, there are a lot of things that are very similar that have happened throughout history that we can draw perspective from, that we can share about experiences that we've had and go through and just help you understand that, what? Hurting is part of life. And it's unfortunate, but it is, right? I mean, Ryan, you've been hurt before, right?
I'm pretty invincible, so probably not.
You are pretty invincible. Yep.
Yeah,
and you
but
are pretty
if I choose not to lie to everybody, then yeah, definitely.
You've never been hurt, and you've never hurt anyone.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I just happen to exist, and I don't do anything, so I can't possibly hurt anybody. No, definitely have hurt people, and definitely have been hurt. For sure. Quite, in quite intense ways and quite soft ways, all sorts of different ways.
Wow.
Physical
Kat,
ways,
I'm impressed that you've never been hurt.
Emotional ways. Never been hurt. Wow.
Never been hurt. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I've been hurt lots of times, but hey, maybe I'm just a wimp. Whatever. But anyway,
maybe everybody's a wimp compared to Kat, and that's how it goes.
That's probably true. True. Kat's pretty tough cookies. But anyway, so yeah, that's it. This is our show. Go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and submit your topic. We would love to talk about it with you on the stream, or if you're not available and you are okay with that, we can talk about it when you're not here, and that's fine too. So anyway, yeah, you guys look great in the chat. You guys look like you're doing awesome. How are you doing tonight, Ryan?
I am doing amazing. How are you doing?
Fatnastic.
I love that. Fatnastic. Yes, you said that just before the show, and it's just like,
I did.
what a weird mix. You just change 2 letters around, and usually when you do that, you can just like, I don't know, it's not that stark of a difference. But that one's pretty stark. That's fatnastic.
Fatnastic.
Fatnastic sounds like you're fat and nasty.
Hey, you know what? Might not be a lie.
Yeah,
you only see me from the shoulders up.
That's right. You have no idea how big his lower rib cage and torso and toes are.
Mm-hmm.
They could be the most fat nasty things. Sorry. Okay, anyone who's maybe thinking of that, I've seen Joe and his whole bust down, and he's not fat nasty. Fat and nasty, rather, I should say. He's not fat and nasty. He looks great. He's in great shape.
Well, thank you.
Better shape
Ryan.
than me.
Better shape than Shari.
Yes. Sure is true.
Joe exists IRL. I know it's weird. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't.
Oh yeah, I know, right? I know some people. It's weird when you meet someone online, like in real life, because it's like, oh my gosh, you're real. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
You have like a physical presence and an ambience to you. Like there's an aura and stuff. It's like you have a personality outside of your internet form that it can definitely feel a lot stronger. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It is always interesting meeting people, that in real life that you've met online and that maybe you've developed a pretty solid friendship online, and then you're like, hey, I'm going to meet you in person. And then you meet them in person and you're excited. It's like, I always get a little bit nervous, even if I've seen them before, and I'm going to visit somebody that I primarily talk to online. And, it just is kind of, it's an interesting thing. I'm always just like, oh man, I hope I'm still good enough to be their friend after this, because
yeah,
I always feel like I'm gonna like
mess it up.
Yeah, I do, and that's what I'm the best at. I'm the best at messing things up.
Yeah, but you're so lovable even when you mess things up. People just go, it's Joe. We love him. Who cares?
That's not true, but thank you.
Oh, well, I think it's true.
That's very
I guess everybody
nice.
else is just stupid.
Very kind of you to say. Very kind of you to say, Ryan. You are too nice. But
yeah, but I'm not wrong. I'm just nice. The truth can be nice. Hold on, I got real fuzzy there. That was weird. I'm gonna fix my camera a little bit.
Fix your camera a little bit.
All right. You know what, Joe? I'm gonna listen to what you say. I'm gonna do what you just said. Told me to do.
You're gonna do.
Even though I already said I was gonna do it.
All right. All right.
You ever get that? You're like, you're gonna do something, and someone tells you to do the thing that you're already going to do, and you just stop and you're like, "Nah, I'm not gonna do it anymore."
Yep.
You ever been there?
Yep.
Good.
Like that little rebellious streak in you just goes, well,
yeah.
No, then.
Yeah, it's like I was going to do that, but now you told me to do it. Therefore, there ain't no way I'm gonna do that.
Therefore,
does anyone else
not
in chat
going
ever
to
experience that? Yeah, a little rebelliousness. Don't tell me to do what I'm already trying to do.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna do it anymore.
Yep.
I do that. Yes, I do that with myself.
It's funny. I do that too.
Yeah.
Like I'll put together my to-do list for the day, and I'll immediately mentally rebel against it.
Yeah, totally.
Be like, I don't want to do that. I don't feel like doing that. I know I said I was going to do it, but now I don't want to do it. And doggone it. I feel like disobeying myself. I want to prove that I can
do stuff that I'm going to prove that I'm above myself,
That's right.
I don't have to listen to me.
Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah,
self. Um,
that's right.
but anyway, yeah. So awesome. Well, I think we should get started. What do you think?
Let's do
Good
it. Yeah.
idea.
I'm
All
I'm
right.
excited for today's episode. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So we've got some topics. If you're here and you do have a topic, we'd be w- w- just let us know that you're here and you have a topic. Um, it looks like Win is here in the chat. You have a topic that's a little bit it's like a month old ish. Sponge.
Yes, Sally. Yes. Absolutely. I I love you.
What?
He said if someone honks at me to go right on red, I stop and wait for the green.
Oh, you're
There's no
that
rules
guy.
against waiting for the green. It's
You're
so
that guy,
true.
huh?
Yeah, it's like, excuse me, did you just honk? You're impatient. Seems like you need a lesson. I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till the lights almost turned red again, and then I'll go.
Oh
No,
my
I
gosh.
never would do that, but oh my gosh, the desire to do that is definitely there.
Yeah. Yeah. I have trouble with people that honk their horns at me too. Like,
Yeah.
or even if they're honking their horns and it's not at me, I always feel like they're honking at me.
Mm, right.
And
Right.
then, and then I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then my blood pressure goes up and everything. But I used to
Yep.
experience that a lot more when I was on the road as an inspector, and now I work full time for BSS, and so I'm on the road nearly as much, which
That's
is
nice.
which is awesome.
That's the way it
Um,
should be.
yeah. So I think
Anyhow.
I think we're gonna start with Wynn's topic. This is called paralyzation and out of reach,
Mm.
and yeah. So we'll start there since of the people that are here, this is the first one on the list. So we'll go with that one. What do you say?
That sounds great. Let's do it.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Thanks, Win.
Thank you. All right. So I'll get the topic up here on the screen so you guys can read along while I read it aloud. So this is from Win. It is called Paralyzation and Out of Reach. Oh, you even quoted yourself in the chat. Everything I touch becomes horny. Look at the cute big rhinos. Beautiful. All right.
When
So
you're a character.
yes. All right. So I'll get this up on the screen then, so you guys can read it aloud. Read it aloud. You read it aloud while I read it aloud.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, actually, you don't have to. You can just read along.
I'll refrain from participatory action there. That'll get a little
Okay.
confusing on the stream.
All right. That would be good. So, all right. Here's the topic. And it reads as follows. Do you ever stand still with the fact that there is only a limit to what we can achieve? Even when I'm trying so hard, I feel as if my dream and goal is forever out of reach. I stopped sleeping, keep working on my goal, yet it is still so far out of reach. Did I live up to your expectations if you keep changing them, or will I never live up to them because you put them out of my reach? Win.
Mm.
Oh
Mm.
my. I can relate. I can relate
Mm.
to the crux of this topic. It definitely is something that I've experienced as far as, like feeling the crushing weight of my own limits. It certainly can be tough, especially when, especially like if you have something in your mind, you have a plan, you have some kind of an idea of what's supposed to happen, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen. This happens when I'm on my way to a goal, even if I'm not close to hitting a goal, but the pathway to the goal looks different than I expect. That also will throw me off from time to time, and I have to remind myself, okay, wait a second. Sometimes things happen, and it's okay. The goal remains, but my plan might have to change, right? And so that's happened before. It's thrown me off track for a few weeks, it's interesting too. You know, I monitor myself and my own reactions from time to time, and there are times when I set a goal and it's really important to me. It's almost like life or death. Like this goal has to happen, and then all of a sudden something doesn't happen, and then I'm like all thrown off balance for a long time, and then I don't do anything for a while and paralyzed. Just like in the title, you know, it's paralyzation and out of reach, you know, and so you don't hit your goal that's out of reach, and then all of a sudden it can be disheartening, and so then we're paralyzed by it, and it can be really, really difficult. So I am sorry that you have to deal with that, but I think it's kind of a normal thing. Patrick Punmaster, yes, the live chat box on the stream, we have not forgotten about it. It's just malfunctioning. We looked through a whole bunch of different ways to try and get it to work, and it just wasn't working. And then we were like, well, we'll just do the show, and at least there's the chat right there. So, oh, and you looks like you addressed that already.
Yeah, no, but thank you, Patrick, for trying to help, because that's important. We really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. So yes, it happens. Technology be like that for sure.
It do be like that.
It do. So
It do be.
Yep. So anyway, Win, thank you so much for this topic, and I hope that we have some stuff to say that can help with you going through this, because I know it can be hard, and I know sometimes when we're in that, we just need some encouragement that can help us move along towards and just not lose heart, because it's really easy to lose heart. And especially when goals are complex and multifaceted, and sometimes we need to break things down and take it one chunk at a time or whatever. But anyway, I'm going to get out of Ryan's way, and I'm going to turn it over to him and see what he has to say. I know that he will say something lovely, and he will say it in a lovely way, because he's just loveliness personified. I mean, look at that guy.
I wish.
Just wait. It's gonna be close up on him, and then it's gonna be even more lovely. Just wait. As soon as we get Joe off of the screen, it's gonna be way better. So here we go. Ready?
Joe's set. Pretty good though.
Ready. Hey, I'm the host. You shush.
I'll wait for my turn. Oh my gosh.
All right. Gosh. So Ryan, take it away. Sorry to keep you waiting.
You're great. Thank you so much for this topic, Win. I also really like the quote you just said. Obviously you created it, so it's a quote from yourself. I have those too, so it's totally fine. You said the monster you are the most scared of is the one you created, because the one you created is the one you don't want to face. And that's accurate. I think that's pretty great. Well said. But anyhow, yeah, so addressing the issue, you know, I think everyone's probably been put in the standstill of the realization that the goals or the expectations or the dreams or the self-imposed expectation of what we can become is it faces a limit, and then we come to that limit, or we recognize that limit and it shuts us down. I think that's a pretty normal experience for sure. As Joe was saying, he's experienced it. I know I've experienced it. And I think that's healthy. I think it's important also to realize this. It's a sort of counter argument to that. Sort of. In that we're human and we are limited creatures, right? I find more and more, the more I study and learn about psychology and the way the brain works and neurology and all that kind of stuff, it seems very strange that the brain seems to be more of a limiter than it does a container for knowledge. Like the human brain seems more so to be a limiter of knowledge and helps to limit what we can do, so as to point us in directions and contain knowledge without containing everything and overloading ourselves and not being able to do anything. Which is a really strange facet of humanity. But limits you know, we are very limited creatures, but that in our limits, we create great things. And what I mean is because of our limits, we create great things. I think any artist knows whether you're doing, well, any kind of artist, whether you're engineering something, you're painting something, you're writing something, or doing some kind of music or whatever, even if you're just playing a video game, when you put limits on yourself, you become more creative. You know, let's say you're playing a video game and you say, well, I'm no longer going to press the B button, which is jump or something, right? And so
Whoa.
you're like, I'm no longer able to jump. You get really creative in the video game of how to get the farthest possible without doing any jumps, right? Now, that jump is a blessing and it allows us to, you know, do a lot of things we couldn't do without it. But when we put limits on ourselves, we discover creativity. And in that, once we bring that jump button back in, we find ourselves more capable of playing the game than ever before because now we have the things we learned that required us to be limited to learn. And then on top of that, now we have the abilities which can surpass it. So it's kind of unique, right? B is jump. I don't know. I'm used to like the last system I played on is like on a controller was the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Mm.
So no wait, no, I played on the PlayStation 2. Never mind, I played PlayStation 2. But anyways, I think that was an X. But if you said X on SNES, that would have been the top button if I remember correctly. It doesn't matter. Space bar to jump, and that is accurate. Yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
please. That's what I always use for jump. Um, so anyways, that sounds annoying. That's what I always use. Um, so yeah, whenever I bring my controller, I bring my keyboard along, and I just have a separate button for jump. It's my space bar. Okay, that's a lie. It's silly. Anyways, um, so yeah, there's limitations. We have to recognize that the limitations are real, and yeah, they can bring us to great pause and recognize like I can't. How am I supposed to achieve that? You know. Here's the other thing. Um, what we don't realize is what we can't see and what we achieve. As a weird statement. We can't see all that we achieve in the process of trying to achieve. We can only see what we're focused on. And we can only see what's made visible to us. And so what I mean by that is, um, wow, reminds you of the time you beat Super Mario Bros. Without pressing left. Exactly. There you go. So you, okay, your brain focuses on things and is able to see those things clearly. For example, um, if you're focused on a vehicle, right? Let's say like you're focused on a car. You really like cars a lot, you know. Um, you are aware of all the cars around you because you really want one, and you start to notice and see similar types. You start to be able to pick out like, oh, that's a Subaru or that's a sedan, that's a Toyota something, Camry or whatever. You start to be able to notice those things because your focus is on cars. So in your pursuit for a car, you do all these things, but you find yourself still without a car. And you're like, well, apparently I can't, apparently um I couldn't achieve my goal, which was getting a car, or at least I haven't achieved it yet, and I can keep on going. But I noticed that I'm very limited in like how much money can I make to get that car? Because that's a prerequisite. It's like, well, I seem to be very limited in my ability to make money. However I'm trying to make it, I seem to be very limited. Okay. Yes, true, true. But what you don't see is all the actions you took to get the car, what all of those lead up to, and all the good that they do. So let's say you work at a grocery store. It's like, okay, you work at a grocery store. Not a fantastical job, right? Just a ordinary job. Nothing wrong with it. It's a good service. It helps people. You don't notice every single human being you helped. Because your brain is focused on getting the car.
Mm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
your brain is focused on getting the money from the job. You aren't witnessing the way you might be changing the lives of those people you encounter because of your job. It could be your employees, right? You bring a specific attitude or a specific perception to your workplace that wasn't there before. All of a sudden, the store starts running a little bit differently because you're there. But you wouldn't notice that. The people you interact with, they might have a better day. It might not just be a better day. It might be a shift in mindset. They might change the way they think about things because they encountered one shop clerk, and that shop clerk said something or did something in a specific way. Maybe maybe you inspired them by the way that you took your groceries and you rung them up. You're like ding 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 super fast, and they're like, wow, that person's super excellent at scanning those things. You know what? That's amazing how fast they did that. I want to go do things fast like that. And then they start practicing a skill, and you would have had no idea the impact you made. So what I mean to say by all this is, yeah, as human beings, we are incredibly limited. And our ability to reach our goals is difficult. And we meet limit after limit after limit, and we hope to outgrow those or overcome them. But what we're unaware of is everything that we're doing that's amazing on the side. Human beings are incredibly impactful. The way we impact each other's lives is incredible. You can't even number it. It's so vast in every experience, in every I don't know, every encounter. And that means something. And that means something beyond your own life and beyond the people you impact, because those people you impact go on to impact other people. And that's an incredible thing. The value of a human is uncalculable because it does so much for each other, all the other humans, but also the environment we live in. You know, I'm not just talking about Mother Earth, but that as well. I'm not just talking about the work environment, maybe being scientific or labor intensive or whatever, but that as well. You know, there's so much that a single person brings to the table. Are all of us counted as great or geniuses by our culture? No, of course not. But does that reflect the truth? And I'd say no, of course not. I think no one can even begin to estimate the amount of the limitless amount that a single human life has on everything. No one can calculate it. And so while we are limited, we don't see our limitlessness because we don't see the way we impact the people around us. So I think it's important, just a little bit, to recognize and reflect on that, if only to help you recognize that even if you feel like you're limited to what you can achieve, it's not in vain. It's not in vain, right? I think that's the lesson here that I'm trying to teach, if you will. Even if you come to your limits and you never achieve what you set out to, that doesn't mean it's in vain, because you cannot see the impacts you've made along the way. And I can guarantee they are way more than you ever can imagine. And, you know, our hope is that, you know, at least in the Catholic faith, eventually when you pass, you can help come to realize what those things are sometime after death. But regardless, whether that is the case or not, we can't see how great we impact the world around us. And that's why it's so important to try to be good and to do good things, right? Not to do bad things to get our goals, right? That's a one of the reasons we limit ourselves is because we're trying to do things a good way. We force limit on ourselves because we have morals, we have standards, we
Mm.
have we have those things. If we do without standards and morals, we have this idea that the end justifies the means. So as long as we get whatever we want to achieve, it doesn't matter how many people we kill along the way.
Mm.
And kill is just a broad idea. Like it could be any other kind of trespass. It could be any other kind of um, evil thing. So we can be, we should be thankful that we limit ourselves because in that limitation, by choosing to be moral and choosing to have good morals, to have good strengths, to try to be good people, we make the world a better place, right? And we impact the world in a good way because you can absolutely impact the world in a ruthless, evil way. I mean, examples of that. You see that probably, I mean, I know we don't have to go to the extremes of Hitler, Stalin, etc. We can even go back to like middle school,
Mm.
right? I mean, everybody knows they've had experiences in middle school. It's like, wow, that person clearly was not thinking about what's good for others, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so my point about this is, um, I think, yeah, it's totally normal to come to a standstill in the reflection of this is what I want, and it seems so far away, and it seems like no matter what I do, that's not a possibility. But that doesn't create you achieving that doesn't necessarily create the ultimate good.
Mm.
Because the ultimate good comes from a place of love, not a place of questing. Which questing there's nothing wrong with. But when you quest with love in mind, that's that's the that's that's the candy. That's the meal. That's the sustenance that we give
Mm.
in our activity. That's what makes the world awesome. Not necessarily you achieving that thing that you are trying to achieve. So that's a beautiful thing, you know? There's a lot of people like, let's say, trying to solve cancer. And it's like, yeah, we've come a long way. We have learned some things and we're starting to figure it out and it's great, but it's still not solved.
Mm.
So does that mean everybody's activity was in vain? It's like, no. Actually, what's interesting is because there is cancer, it caused people to reach out and try to do something good. And the nature of trying to do something good is good and impactful and important. And it helps the people's brains and their souls and their hearts to reflect that goodness on the world. And so, in a world where we are grasping for goodness, right? You can see it in the culture. There's so much like war between people fighting. And it's like, well, why can't we just love? And that's kind of a hippie kind of saying, but it's not wrong. And it's like, well, when someone's fighting to solve cancer, they're on the track of they might not solve it, but at least they're pouring love out into the world,
Mm.
right? Because they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to reach something good and they're doing good for it. And so that is what creates the world we want to live in. Solving cancer doesn't create the world we want to live in. Because if you solve cancer, I'm not saying don't solve it, right? Obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
if if you got rid of cancer, right? Boom, done. Okay, now that's something no one has to worry about anymore. Okay, cool. Cool. So that's something we don't have to worry about. Okay, but it doesn't make the world a better place. It just makes it less painful. Those are two different things. Less
Mm.
painful and a better place, two different things.
Mm.
And so, if you want a better world with better people in it, sometimes we have to experience those limits. Sometimes we have to push ourselves to the brink in order to exert the good on the world that we want in the world. And it's not necessarily by solving or achieving anything, it's by acting out. And so that's what I felt like I thought would be good to talk about on this topic. So thank you, Win, for giving the topic. And it's a very relatable topic. So I really appreciate that, Win. I'm gonna step away now and give it over to Joe. See what he's got.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for talking about that. I can really relate to some of the things you were saying about limits and how it's good that there are limits. As frustrating as it can be, to have those limits imposed upon us, or to be running after something and then discover that we have some kind of a limitation or whatever, or maybe there's a time constraint, maybe we just don't have the capacity to throw as much as we need to at a thing to achieve whatever goal it is that we're set. Sometimes it's just, so one of the things that frustrates me more than anything is not hitting a goal within the time frame I set. And I sometimes set really aggressive time frames for myself, because I tend to be a person that works hard, which can be interesting. I will throw my heart into what I'm doing and work really hard at it, and even I'll do it in tasks and I'll do it in relationships as well. Like I will throw everything I have into, whatever thing it is that I'm working on. And it can be really hard when I reach my own limits. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot move past this point, or I cannot move past this point today, and it's already really late, and I'm exhausted, and I'm just getting frustrated and more frustrated because I'm not getting what I want done. And it's weird. I've recently discovered again one of my own limits in the amount of time I can listen to a song over and over and over and over and over again before my ears just get tired. Because, one part of my job is to produce music. And so, I'll be listening to a song. I'll be trying to finish it. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I've got deadlines. I got to meet these things and whatever, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'll just get to a point where I've listened to something so much that I'm no longer effective at mixing or engineering or whatever it is that I'm doing. I'm just no longer effective because my ears are tired and I have to give them a break. And so then I have to go and just sit in silence for a while, or maybe I need to listen to something else, to just kind of reset things or whatever. And it can be really frustrating. But Ryan is absolutely right that, those limits, the limits are valuable. And in fact, it's so valuable because think about it. If we could just achieve everything that we set out to do, how valuable would all those things be? Not very valuable.
Right.
If everything
your
was
heart
easy,
would be stirring for a quest. Your heart would be stirring for meaning.
Exactly. If something's not difficult, we put lower value on it. If something's easy, it's just easy, and we can get kind of spoiled, if everything just comes to us without our effort, or without, trying, or without having to save, or without having to, put forth a lot of effort and maybe overcome a whole bunch of obstacles along the way, it just isn't as valuable. And we end up in like spoiled brat syndrome, where we just get everything we want. And then, as soon as something doesn't go the way we want, then we get all frustrated and angry about it, right? And we act like a brat. I've definitely been there before. I've known lots of people who have been there before.
Me too.
And it's okay. This is part of it. And so, part of what makes things valuable are those very limits, the very frustrations that we can't stand are the things that make things more valuable. It's funny. I visited my brother this past weekend, and we were hanging out. We were playing Mario Kart because it's fun.
Oh, fun.
And I came in last place, and one of my friends, it was me, my brother, and a friend of ours that I went to high school with, right? And we were all sitting there, and we were playing Mario Kart, and and he won. He kept winning because he's got kids and he plays Mario Kart all the time with his kids and stuff, and so he's like really good at it. And so, like, I was like, I told him he won, and I came in last. And I was like, "Yep, you're welcome." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, how could you be first if there wasn't somebody to be last?
That's right.
How could there ever be a winner if there weren't all kinds of losers? Right? I say that I play Overwatch, and I play competitive Overwatch, and I'm like a bronze 5, which is the lowest rank you possibly can be, right? And I sit there and be like, but you know what? There would be no silvers or golds or platinums or whatever without all those bronzes at the bottom. Taking up all that space. And so, you know what? I will own that spot. I'll be in that spot, and I'll be just fine, And you can look down on me all you want, but your position as a higher rank would not exist if there weren't people in the lower ranks. Right? It's true. And so achievement, the value of achievement only comes because there are those limits, because there are those things that, can frustrate us and that can, make us. And so it really just kind of depends on our perspective on whatever it is that we're dealing with, right? We can take anything that happens and we can make it a good or a bad thing based on how we label it. Right? We can.
For sure.
You can take something that, the world would view as incredibly evil. And you can shift your perspective a little bit and it can be good. It's really strange. And I'm of the opinion that you could probably do that with just about anything. Now, sometimes our perspectives are just way out of whack, right? Sometimes we just have the complete wrong idea about something, and that's fair. I've been there before too, and that's okay. But so what I would encourage you to do in this case of coming up against these limits and trying to achieve and trying to do these kinds of things and understanding that, these things are supposed to be hard or else they wouldn't be valuable. That it's okay to have to try and fail and try again and fail and try again and fail. And some of the I've heard really smart people say, well, if it's hard, you just must not be cut out for it.
Oh, that's not it.
If you don't succeed right away, it just must not be for you. And it's like those same people will watch a kid learning how to walk, watch them fall over and over and over and over and over again, trying to learn how to walk. And they'll be encouraging and cheering them for them and all this kind of stuff, right? And then we get to be adults and they're like, well, if it didn't come naturally to you, it must not be what you're cut out to do. That's ridiculous. Because sometimes the very thing we need is to fail over and over and over and over again on our way to succeeding. That's what we need. Because, like I said before, it makes the victory that much more valuable. It makes the victory that much more sweet. And also, it weeds out the people that aren't serious. And sometimes I'm one of those people that gets weeded out, depending on what it is that we're talking about. I've been there before where I've like tried and tried and tried and failed and failed and failed. And then I've just been like, you know what? I have to do something else because this is just too frustrating. Or I just lose a taste for it. And I'm like, you know what? I need to, this isn't what I'm cut out to do. But I try to avoid saying to myself, I'm not cut out for this because it's hard. Because I recognize things are supposed to be hard. And that's okay. And maybe I'm supposed to put out something that isn't as good so that other people who are better than me can feel good about themselves. Maybe that's part of it. And I've done a lot of making people feel good about themselves in that regard, right? And that's okay. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily always mean you have to quit. But it does sometimes mean that we have to choose what it is we're after. And maybe we have to choose a bit more wisely because we simply don't have the time to achieve everything that we want. Sometimes we have to pick the things that are more important to us than others. And then we have to continue and focus and continue to try and continue to fail until we get there. And along the way, it might seem like we're never going to get there. Along the way, we may hit all kinds of obstacles. We might hit all kinds of hardships. We might fail again and again. But if we don't give up and we continue to learn and we continue to make adjustments and we continue to work hard, I believe that most people can do just about anything they set their mind to as long as they set their mind to it and keep going. Because I've seen people that should not have succeeded in certain areas that end up succeeding in those areas.
Oh, sure.
Just because they took all those challenges and instead of getting disheartened and quitting, what they did was they used that frustration as fuel. And I know I've talked about this before, but sometimes that frustration, that anger that builds up, sometimes that can be the very fuel to move us to the next level. Ryan talked about being creative, and we talked about video games and, trying to put limits on ourselves so we can get better. Sometimes those things are absolutely necessary and what's needed in order to have an innovative breakthrough in creativity that might change the way things are done in that whole field forever.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's the mistakes that lead to those eureka moments, right? The tire was invented by mistake.
I didn't know that.
Yep. The formula of whatever it was in the, that they were working on and trying to figure out to make tires out of, I think it was the guy, the last name was Firestone. I think he was the guy who had this mistake. And he ended up, he was boiling this compound of rubber mixed with some other stuff or whatever, and he was boiling it and he was trying to come up with something that worked. And it just wasn't working. And then he accidentally, in his frustration, he spilled some of it on the stove that he was cooking it on. And so that superheated, experience for this compound then hardened it to the point where it was then useful. And that's how it was discovered to get the vulcanized rubber that they would use for tires. And it was done by accident. So you never know. You never know. You might be right on the edge. And it just takes a moment of perceived failure to find the next level, to get to the next step. You might have to fail in order to accidentally come across the answer. That's happened a lot of times in history. That's just the one I could think of,
Oh, yeah.
but I know it's happened over and over and over again. And we get creative by necessity because of our limits. And that creativity can create such a better thing than we ever set out to do in the first place. So I'm sorry, Win. I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard when you have a goal or when you have multiple goals and you're running after them and you just feel like you're getting stymied or you're getting, you're just failing over and over again. And you sense your own limits. But if you can shift your perspective a little bit on those limits, it can really help you focus on A, what's important to you, and B, having the energy to move forward. Because if we can be frustrated and then not disheartened, we can find a deep well of energy to continually move forward. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you. I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan and see if he's got anything else to say on the topic. So, Ryan?
Nope.
All right.
That's what I got. Nope, nothing else to
Perfect.
say. I think that was well said, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. And Win, thank you again for the topic. And hopefully we can, that gives you a little bit of perspective. But sometimes things that are out of reach are just out of reach. Maybe we're not meant to do it. Or maybe we are, but we're meant to innovate. And we're running up against those frustrations in order to come up with some creative idea to innovate in this area. So there are all kinds of possibilities. But regardless, it doesn't change how valuable you are as a person, which is, like Ryan said, incalculable. Cannot calculate the value of a single human life because it's priceless. And you are priceless, regardless of what you decide to do, regardless of how whatever goal you decide to reach after. It doesn't change how valuable you are. So thank you. Thank you so much for the topic. And, and if you have anything more that you'd like to expound upon, feel free to do so. If you guys have a topic that you'd like us to cover, you can go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and we would be happy to talk about it. And again, if you're just joining us, I apologize for the chat box being empty on the screen. We ran into some technical difficulties that we just simply could not get worked out before the show. And so you'll just have to watch the chat underneath.
That's right.
Yep. So anyway.
Or on the side, depending on your setup.
Yes, exactly. But yes, we will move on to our next topic. So, Win, thank you again. And hopefully that's helpful. We will move on. Let's see. So, if you know you have a topic, let us know you're here. And we'd be happy to cover it. Let's see. Otherwise, let's see. We've got one from Science Rocks.
And they say they will not be present.
Right, they will not be present. And they were here, and I don't think they've been back since that day, or maybe a couple times. They were here a couple times.
Yeah,
and then,
it's hard for them to make it. So, you want to do
Yep.
that one?
Sure. Yeah, let's do this. To love selflessly is the title of this topic. And let me get it up on the screen here so we can do that, and we can read it out loud. All right. All right. I will get it up on the screen and read along. This is called To Love Selflessly from Science Rocks. And it reads as follows. TLDR, which, forgive me, I'm going to have to ask what that means. TLDR.
Oh, that means too long didn't read.
Oh, too long didn't read. Okay.
It means topic and summary, basically.
Gotcha. All right. All right. TLDR. I was in a toxic one-sided relationship where after 3 years of loving her, I felt taken for granted. It started as a
Mm.
wonderful friendship, then developed into love. I wanted her to love me, but I genuinely wanted to love her as well. I wanted the best for her, yet we had a major falling out. She's given me so many chances, and I've messed them all up. And yet she still only wants the best for me. We talked about being taken for granted recently, and it all hit too close to home. I loved a girl online who was admittedly kind of toxic. She would flirt without being interested and did a lot of things for attention to fight her loneliness. Long story short, I wanted a relationship at first, but after 3 rejections, I dedicated myself to the idea that if nobody else will love her, then I will. She had a rough life and her family was abusive, so it really seemed like nobody loved her. It was truly selfless. At least that's what I tried to be. Ryan mentioned that sometimes a relationship has to fall apart and come back together, that love can grow and change to be better. It was such a toxic relationship. I felt like I was being taken for granted after loving her for 3 years and not getting treated the same way she treated others. Even her friends, she would show affection to, affection she wouldn't give to me anymore.
Mm.
So we had a falling out. It was close to ending well, then a third party got involved, and I said horrible things to her this time. I was angry and jealous. I called her some of the worst things I could think of. I said what I knew would hurt her the most. I was horrible and toxic. I truly loved her and wanted the best for her, but I ended up hurting her because I got jealous. It's taken a year for us to repair our relationship, and we're obviously just friends now, but I'm learning to love her properly this time. She's given me so many chances, and I've failed so many times. Yet she only wants me to grow and change and learn to love her properly, and that is why I love her so much. I still don't know what to do. I'm still lost and don't want to make any more mistakes. I just want to be I just want my love to be truly selfless this time. And that's from Science Rocks.
Mm.
So, Science, thank you, thank you, thank you for this topic. This is an important one because I think all of us have fallen into both sides of this scenario. I know I have.
Mm-hmm.
I've fallen
Yeah.
into the side of being taken for granted. I've taken others for granted, and I don't really like myself when I've noticed that about myself. Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody is valuable and unique and priceless, and to take someone for granted, I feel like is a disservice. And all we have to do is remember what it feels like for us to be taken for granted, and then we can really start to see our own misbehavior in that sense. So yes, so brave. Acknowledge and accept is hard. Yes, you're absolutely right, Ronia. It can be
Mm-hmm.
hard to acknowledge our own faults and our own foibles and stuff like that. And the things that we do that are wrong, and to admit that we're wrong, and to
Mm-hmm.
not try and shift the blame to somebody else, and all kinds of stuff that we do as human beings that are toxic in some way. And really, the key is to develop a little bit of humility in ourselves and to understand that what, we're not perfect. We don't have it all figured out, and what, the people around us aren't perfect either. I noticed a few of these a few times you said in here, Science, that she's given me so many chances and I've failed so many times, and I'm a little bit um part of me like a little flag goes up in my head because it could be totally legit what you're saying, that you've had so many chances and messed up so many times, but sometimes we're just made to feel that way because
So the
you're
other
being
person doesn't have to take
manipulated.
fault.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So the other person doesn't have to take the blame. Exactly. And so
It does
so
happen.
uh-huh. So I feel you. This is a tough situation, and I admire that you want to learn how to love selflessly. I admire that you want to learn how to give love for the benefit of others. That, you don't want to love selfishly in the sense that I love this person and so I want them. You want to be able to give that love, to open your heart and to love them. And that's a very vulnerable position to be in. And I have done that a lot of times and paid for it. And it's been painful at times where I've opened up and loved and given my heart, opened up and given, the best of me to another person. And then they've used it, or they've, used me for some other end than being my friend or whatever. And it just happens. We're all people, and we're all fallen, and we all make mistakes. And that's something to come to grips with. And so, yeah, you said right at the end, you're still lost and don't want to make any more mistakes. I admire that sentiment, and I also think it's impossible because we're all going to make mistakes. We're
Sure.
all going to hurt each other. Especially it seems like the closer we get to somebody, the more we hurt them, the more we hurt each other, right? Because the more chances we have to screw up. And the closer we are, the more our relationship grows in intimacy, the easier it can be to hurt each other because we're at such a deep and vulnerable level with each other, right? So it's an interesting thing. So I can't ever tell you how to not make any mistakes, because I think you will. I think all of us will make mistakes until the day we die. And I'm sorry, but the cool thing is that through those mistakes, we can have reconciliation with that other person. We can say that we're sorry, and we can grow the relationship through that and let them know that, you know what, I never wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry that I did. And, I want to be better. I want to try, I want to continue doing this better. And you can actually end up with a stronger relationship as a result of going through that time of making a mistake, having an error, and then apologizing and being reconciled. That can grow a relationship much more than if everything's just butterflies and rainbows and bliss and unicorns dancing and everything like that, right? So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, who wrote a song called I'm Sorry. That kind of is about that thing I was just talking about, that whole reconciliation thing, and how valuable that can be in our lives. So, I'm not trying to tell you that's what you need to talk about, Ryan, but
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
So take it away, and yeah, I know it'll be awesome.
Sure. Yeah, there's so many different things we can talk about here. You want to learn how to love better. You want to, you said you want to be able to truly love in a selfless way. And I think that's great and it's admirable. And Science Rocks, I mean, you've been a part of this show for a very long time. You used to be here every episode that we did, every live stream back in the back in the day. And you made an impact with yourself while you were here. And it was a very good one. I really respect you, and I think that you're an awesome person. And you were always very honest with yourself and being open about that honesty. And so, Ronia says, you were very brave to acknowledge your faults and stuff. And it's hard. And I just think that is hard. And Science Rocks has always been good at that, and that's awesome. And so, at least as far as you've displayed on Don't Worry Wednesday. So, I'm really proud of you. And yeah, I just really want to say those things. Um, there's so many things to talk about. I'm trying to figure out what I want to start with. And the thing I think I want to start with is the last line here. You said, I just want my love to be truly selfless this time. And I get that. I get that. And that's very hard. But I want to, not that it's important, and it might just be semantics, and it's something you've heard me say before, but we don't really want to be selfless. Because selflessness isn't a virtue. Just like selfishness isn't a virtue. Being selfish is not a good thing, and being selfless is not a good thing. And the reason I point these out is it can lead you to a better love. And so I want to start here. To be truly selfless, you stop acknowledging the good that you are, and you don't make it into a gift that's good for others, right? You need to not worry about being selfless, because if you're selfless, then what are you doing to work on the gift that you have to offer others, which is yourself? When you go to love someone, what you're truly giving them is yourself. In all of the best ways that you can. You're giving them yourself. And that's really important. And so if you're going to attempt to love the best way you can, don't strive for hating yourself. Don't strive for forgetting your own worth. Don't strive for forgetting about what you can bring to the table. Those are important things. And so, not saying that I'm not accusing you of doing those things, but the way that you worded it, I just want to make sure that that's not what you're doing, because there are a lot of people out there who are selfless people, and they're generally very depressed and anxious, and they're not happy. And it's like, well, I'm being a good person. How come I'm not happy? And it's like, well, first of all, being good and being happy are two different things. They're both different goods, and being good is good regardless of whether you're happy or not. So that's fine and all. But the good that you do is limited automatically by the fact that you're being selfless. So don't worry about being selfless. Worry about being humble, being charitable. You can't be very charitable if you don't have any money to give or any time to give, right? Charity requires a gift. If you don't have a gift to give, then how can you be charitable? You say, well, I give myself and my time. And it's like, well, that's because you have time in yourself, right? No matter what you say to that argument, you have something to give if you're being charitable. And so charity requires one to gain in order to give. And humility is another thing. Humility is the recognition of value and living accordingly. So a lot of people think humility is selflessness, and it's not. It's not even close. A lot of people think humility is putting yourself below others around you. That's not accurate. Humility is recognizing the value of yourself and the value of everyone around you, and the value of God, or the value of nature, the value of the dirt that you stand on, the values. When you understand those correctly and you live that out, that's living in humility. So in humility, you don't think you're above the person next to you, because you recognize that that person is as valuable as you. When you're humble and you recognize, I have goods that this person, like, I don't need these goods and this person could use them, or I could do without these goods and this person could use them, right? If you're humble, you will naturally become charitable, because you recognize that person's just as valuable as I am. If I was in their shoes, I'd be suffering. But I'm willing to part and suffer a little bit so that they suffer less, right? I'm willing to suffer a little bit so that they suffer less, right? That's a very loving and charitable act. But you don't get there without humility. So humility is the virtue, and not selflessness. So I want to say that because that helps direct the way that you love. So if you come with this view of the people you encounter, especially those who you're meant to be romantic towards, and you look at them with a humble mindset, recognizing their value first and foremost, as in, not that you're scaling everything by value. Eventually it comes, you just look at people and go, wow, there is so much there. I could spend my whole life on them, giving to them and loving them. And it still wouldn't equate to the incredibleness that they are. They're worth more than all I could give them. And eventually you can get to that point, and that's a lovely place to be. And when you arrive there, when you give your self to someone, it has a different nature to it. I haven't ever met a selfless person who is actually selfless, because there's always that self in the way.
Mm.
And it's rather strange. But when I meet people who are truly selfless, they tend to be really selfish at the same time.
Mm.
It's like both selflessness and selfishness are ultimately self-absorbed.
Mm.
And that's what I notice. And that seems really weird and contradictory, but that's the actual situation. You can't get rid of yourself. You can't stop thinking about yourself because you are you. But if the things you do are a reflection of yourself based on how you feel about yourself and stuff, like how you treat yourself, for example, can be very poor. But it doesn't mean you're not thinking about yourself. Generally, people who treat themselves very poorly are thinking about themselves a lot. And there's nothing wrong with thinking about yourself. But when your values, when you look at yourself and you see someone who has no value, that's why you treat yourself poorly.
Hmm.
So you're not going to stop thinking about yourself. But you can at least think about yourself in a way that isn't harmful. Because when you harm yourself, you harm the gift which you're giving. It's like, hey, I bought you a box of donuts. Isn't it beautiful? I took them out into the parking lot and put each one on the ground and stomped on them, and then I put them in the box and gave them to you.
Mm.
They're still donuts. And it's like, why would you do that? It's like, well, I didn't think the donuts had any value. I didn't think you'd care. Ouch. Right? Like that's painful to realize, like that's what you're doing. But that hurts, and I know that hurts because that's where I was one time in my life. And it's not a fun place to be. Because when you're in that place and you say, I love you to someone, and they don't say, I love you back, it hurts because you're like, all I wanted was your love, and you won't say it back to me. And I'm telling you I love you, and how come you won't tell me? And then you realize the whole reason you're saying I love you is so that you can hear them say it back because you're still unsure. The whole reason you're saying I love you to that person is not because you want them to feel loved necessarily. You do, but there's also this hidden part of you that wants to hear those words back. And it's not wrong to want to hear those words back, but when you get depressed because you don't hear those words back, you know there's something wrong. And that your love is coming from a place of pain and wanting for self. It's like, I love you, and you wait for it to come back to you because that's what's going to make you feel good. Because you don't value yourself enough to treat yourself well to not need that love from others. So you need that love from others in order to make your day feel good, rather than your day just being good. It's a hard place to be. It's a hard place to live. And I don't know if you're there, Science Rocks. I'm just speaking in case you're there, because there's a lot of people in the world who are there, and I was there. And so it's important to not worry about being truly selfless. It's more important to give your best you, because that's what love, what you want out of love. It's to give your best you. And so, I mean, I love that you put this comment, or you put this topic to us, because it's you reaching out and saying, how do I become this? How do I become the best me? How do I become a person that can love better? And sometimes it means working on yourself a little bit. Sometimes it means letting go of yourself a little bit. And it's weird because both of those things can be the same thing. It's like letting go of yourself. When you're in a position where you're like needing people to love you in order to feel good, you gotta let go of yourself. But that also doesn't come unless you satisfied what you need in order to let go. So there's something that needs to be satisfied there. And so it might be how you look at yourself, how you treat yourself in that personal relationship that is inside of you. How do you build up your love in order to give it? Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack and to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just wanted to start there. There's a lot more directions we can take this in, but I've already talked for quite a while on just that. I actually did want to say more, but I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna give it over to Joe, and let him guide you if you will. Anyhow, Joe, take it away.
Let me guide you. That's a
Yeah.
scary thought in this topic.
Yes. There's a lot of red flags though, and that's okay. I mean, all relationships, no one's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're dealing with.
It's true.
And that's why Joe talked about forgiveness. I mean, that's so important. So, anyways.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I will do the best I possibly can. I can guarantee nothing.
Fair enough.
Because, we're talking about there are overtones of romance in this, and so it's a little bit triggering for me. But anyway, science. I want to. First of all, I want to tell you I admire you. I admire your desire to love this person well, and to love selflessly, and it can feel like a great ideal, but like Ryan said, and like Saule said in the chat, you can't live without yourself because you need to be alive to live. Take care of yourself such that you can be the best version of yourself. If you are the best version of yourself, you will be good to others, including those you love, right? And so there's one danger in that statement, and it's I've seen this happen with personal development gurus and different people who talk about being the best version of yourself, and it gets thrown around in a lot of different contexts of being the best version of yourself. And I know people will take that and they'll be like, well, I'm living my best life and I'm the best version of myself, and so they treat it as a prideful moment. And they think, oh, well, I'm just so great. It's the best version of myself, like, who are you to question me? And so we can take any of these things too far. Ryan talked about taking, that selflessness, it can be, that word can be used in a lot of different contexts, right? To be selfless could mean that you just put others first and you're willing to serve. You're willing to give somebody the spot in front of you in line. You're willing to pay the person. It was funny, my brother and I picked him up. We had to cross the Mackinac Bridge to get to his house, right? And it's $4 to cross the bridge. And he's like, okay, get out $8. And I'm like, 8? It's 4. And he's like, yeah, but we're going to pay for the person behind us because we always do that. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so I handed him the money, and I was like, we'd like to pay for the person behind us as well, and the gal at the booth was like, okay, like they hear this, from time to time, people do that. But it was so funny. I remember pulling away, and I was kind of watching in the rear view mirror. I was glancing back at there to see this person's response, and they were holding out their money. And then, like, the person, I could see the person in the booth, like, explaining it to it, and they just, like, sat there frozen for a minute. Like, they didn't know what to do. Like, so, So, because sometimes, but that could be seen as a selfless act, right? Something that, hey, I want to do something nice for someone, and because it's doing something for them, it can be seen selflessly. So I can see where you're coming from, but I also want to warn you that there is no true selflessness.
Right.
Because we are present. And I love what Ryan talked about, because if we're thinking about giving ourselves as a gift to another person, what kind of a gift is it that we're giving them? If we don't like ourselves, we're not a very good gift to the people around us.
Mm-hmm.
And that
we suck the life energy out of people around us, if that's the case.
Yep.
At least that was my experience.
Which tells me that Ryan is lying about hanging around me and thinking.
That's not true, man. You're great.
Whatever. Stop it. Because I go through, it's crazy. We go through phases in life. We go through different times of hardship. We go through different things. And, like, there's been a big dollop of, we'll just put it, opportunities for healing. We'll call it that.
That is, wow. Nice. That's great.
When you go through that, it's hard to like yourself. It's hard to think that you have any value to bring to the table. It's hard after you've been, through some pretty ridiculous stuff. It's hard to find any value in yourself. It's hard to find value in existence. It's hard to find any value in the fact that the world and the universe and everything that's in it exists. Because none of it feels good. None of it tastes good. It's all hard. It's all painful. It all hurts. And you just wish none of it ever happened in the first place. And it got me to the point now where I, like, if my kids are blaming each other for stuff, I'm like, no, it's God's fault. He's the one who started the whole deal, right? And so, like, which probably isn't the right thing to say, but whatever.
It probably does create a little bit of peace in the chaos, though.
Yeah, it does. But that's okay. But, oh, Neonsai has in the chat, if nobody else will love her, I will. It seemed like nobody loved her. I was truly selfless. I think that would be good to revisit these thoughts, like where these thoughts come from. And that's a very, very good point. Like, because sometimes in our brain, we can come to incorrect conclusions based on things we observe. And some of these things, sometimes, our perspective just needs a little bit of a shift. And sometimes we have to look at, okay, what's going on in my heart and in my mind that's making me think this way? Because sometimes that's the case. Sometimes we're just off track And we need to get to the bottom of a situation in order to figure out what's going on. I know that, my therapist and I have walked through all kinds of stuff over this past year, 2 years, whatever. Actually about a year and a half that I've been with this therapist. And, we've walked through so many different areas of, heart issues, of mental hangups, of different things of like, I operate a certain way as a defense mechanism, sometimes, or I operate a certain way because, it's just what I've been convinced that this is the way the world is, even though it's wrong. Or it's just not a helpful way. And sometimes we're at the mercy of an abuser, and that can be tough. And I will say, if this friend of yours, Science, if she grew up in an abusive situation, then there may be some things that she may have some wrong ideas about how the world works because of defense mechanisms that have been built up, or because of the way she's been treated, or, whatever. There could be some hangups there that might not make any sense to you. And you will have to treat her with grace and patience and love. And love her through those issues. I've been blessed with some great friends that have loved me through a lot of issues, that have loved me through a lot of incorrect thinking. Ryan is one of them. But it's true that to love somebody selflessly doesn't really exist. It does if we use the term selflessly in a way of saying, hey, we're giving of ourselves to that other person. That's really what love is anyway. But if we don't take care of ourselves, and if we totally disregard ourselves, or if we hate ourselves or whatever, then we're not going to have something good to give. We can try, but it'll never be ideal. Some authors will go to great lengths to say, if you don't love yourself, you are incapable of loving others. And I disagree. I disagree with that statement. I think that's a really hard-line statement. What's that, Ryan?
I don't agree with that statement either. It's not perfectly accurate.
Mm-hmm. I understand where they're coming from. We might not be able to do as good a job loving someone if we don't love ourselves. But I don't think we're completely incapable of loving others if we don't love ourselves. It's just not as good. We're not offering as good a gift as we could be with our love. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, our hearts are complicated. And sometimes our personalities get involved, and, we see things a certain way, they see things a different way, and there's miscommunication, and stuff gets all misinterpreted, and there's all kinds of stuff that can happen and be possible, right? But whatever mistakes you've made in the past, you can always apologize. You can always attempt to be reconciled with that other person. Those are things that you can do. But here's the thing. To say we want to love somebody selflessly What's the motive behind that? Because I've heard people say that before. I've said that before. And deep down, when I examined my thoughts and my heart and, everything that was going on, the truth is I wanted them. I wanted a close relationship with them. Maybe I wanted them to be a romantic partner. But the key is, deep down, I wanted them. And it comes in my mind, logically speaking, all dressed up as this statement of wanting to love them selflessly. But really, it's about getting them. And we can fool ourselves. And I'm not saying that this is what you're after. I'm just saying, ask yourself the question. And it's okay to be in the position of wanting someone. We all have been there. We've all had crushes on people. We've all fallen in love, or at least thought we've fallen in love, or whatever, right? Like, many of us have fallen in love with people, and we've wanted them. We've imagined what life would be like with them. We've imagined, this would be so great, and we could have just this great relationship, and, and we don't even know what we're asking of the world. But close relationships, romance, man, I'll tell you, you are asking for pain. You are asking for suffering. You are asking for opportunities for growth, which are painful. You're asking to be put in a position where it's going to take a lot of you. I don't think there's anything, I don't think there's any such thing as an easy romantic relationship, or a going off into the sunset, or a, because you get married, you get in a relationship, whatever happens, right? And then I'm telling you, it's a matter of time before everything hits the fan, falls apart, and then you got all kinds of backpedaling to do, and you got to figure out, how to exist with this other person. It's hard, and it's painful, and you're going to hurt them, and they're going to hurt you. And I remember getting married, and I remember getting threatened by her brothers that I better not ever hurt her. And I looked at them kind of funny, and I'm like, we're getting married. How are we not going to hurt each other? I promise you I'm going to hurt her, not intentionally. I'm not going to do anything to intentionally hurt her, but I can tell you that I'm a human being, and when two humans come together, they get hurt. And it gets really interesting when we have an idea of somebody that doesn't match up with the reality of who that person is. Because then we try and change them into what we want them to be. Or they try and change us into what they want us to be. And then maybe we go along with it and we start making all these changes. And then here's what happens. So maybe, here's the thing. This is another flag that pops up in this whole situation. You're talking about wanting to be good for this person. And you're talking about making mistakes and having all these chances and then just always messing it up. You might be focused on a person that is impossible to please. I'm not saying necessarily that's the truth, but it's a possibility. You may just be living your life, and the person that you are, they have a different version of who you should be, and so they try and change you. And you go along with it because you want them, because you want to be with them. And so you're like, oh, I need to make myself into this other person. I need to make myself into a better person. And so I need to, do all this stuff and work really hard. And I'm not saying self-improvement is bad, but I'm saying when somebody has an expectation that you need to be different than who you are, and they try and change you, you're never going to satisfy them, ever. I can promise you that. If you come across a person like that won't take you for who you are, that won't accept you for who you are, but always has something different, the bar will always be too high. It will always get higher. And no matter how many things you fix, there will be another thing. And you will always, always, always be unacceptable. It's never ending. Once you get in that situation, if they can't love you for where you are at right now, they put all kinds of stipulations on you, chances are they're not going to be satisfied no matter what you change, because then you start changing and then they're like, oh, well, hey, they changed this for me. Well, why stop there? Let's move on. You're never going to get to that point of perfection. I'm sorry. I get a little riled up. I get a little upset. I get a little angry because I experienced this for a really, really long time. And I came to the recognition that, you know what? I just laughed at her one time when my ex-wife, she said something and I just laughed, and she's like, "Why are you laughing?" And I'm like, because I've learned that there are two absolute truths here. One is that I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can. And the second truth is it will never be good enough for you. I can change, I can try, I can manipulate myself, I can become somebody else. It's never going to be good enough because I'm never going to fit that ideal. There will never be enough. And so if you're feeling in that position constantly with a person, if you're in some kind of friendship and you're looking to make it romantic and you feel like you're always in this position of you're not acceptable, they're always pointing out things that you need to fix, that you need to change, that you need to be better at, if that's the case, you need to get out. The problem is that's addictive, especially if we're a high achiever or a hard worker.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because then it's like, oh, and that, then we'll try extra hard. And then we might get a little Scooby snack of rewarded for our efforts or whatever. We might get a little bit of affection or whatever might happen, right? And it might be, and then we crave that. And then, and then it becomes this never-ending toxic cycle loop over and over and over again, descending into the pits of hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
Until you're left not even knowing who you are anymore. You don't even recognize yourself. So, all that being said, I apologize. I apologize for getting angry. I apologize for yelling. What? I'm sorry, what, Ryan?
No, I said that was important.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm not trying to tell you not to have a romantic relationship. I'm not trying to tell you that. I'm not trying to tell you any of that stuff. But what I'm trying to tell you is someone who's unsatisfied, maybe they're unsatisfiable. And no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, no matter all the hoops you jump through, no matter any of it, you're still going to come up against the wall, and there's still going to be more. There's going to be more and more and more for you to try and do, to try and be better at, and it'll never be good enough. And in the end, you do that for a couple decades, and you end up somebody you don't even recognize. You don't even know which way is up anymore. And then when you leave them, you're kind of in this no man's land of what the heck just happened, and you're kind of shell shocked, and then you're lost, and then you're like wanting to go back to the abusive situation because it was at least comfortable. You at least knew where you stood, and now you feel completely lost because you don't know who you are, and now you don't have that either anymore. And it's a whole big train wreck of stuff. And you feel completely lost. And then you have really close friends of yours that lie about how nice it feels to be around you. Like Ryan.
I don't lie about you, man. You're awesome.
Thank you. But
I
speaking
think I
of
just
Ryan,
love you, I guess.
I'm going to turn it back over to him because I'm going to derail. So anyway, Ryan,
Yeah.
clean this mess up that I just made.
All right. Well, I think it's fine. I don't think it's a mess. Life is messy.
It is true. It
So,
is.
yeah.
And
So,
Miaglios, thank you very much.
yeah, I agree.
You're awesome. Thank you.
I agree with Mianglios. So I do just want to touch on a little bit more. Joe, you said it was fantastic, all of it. And now let's just take a few steps back and let's say, you're kind of in okay place. Like you don't deprive yourself of value. You treat yourself well. Let's say you aren't in a relationship that's, I mean, you did say it was toxic, but let's say that you're not necessarily exactly in the relationship Joe described. Maybe you are, but it's important to examine those things. So here's some things. First of all, Joe asked you to kind of reach deep into yourself and ask why you're fighting to have this person, if you will. Be a part of this person's life, wanting to love this person at all costs, etc. Which is okay. To love at all cost is great. Just as long as that cost is not the lack of love. Right? Love at all costs, just as long as that cost isn't something evil. Right? That's fair. And there's plenty of evil we can do to ourselves. So it's important. But there's also plenty of evil we can do to each other or our friends, right? For the sake of love, which is not very loving. But anyhow, so to desire someone is okay, but I would recommend you look into yourself and say, why, right? Part of love is to desire, right? To desire for someone, right? And to give them yourself. That's good. That's a healthy thing. But it's also important to find the roots of those thoughts and really flesh them out with yourself. So I've got two things I want to touch on. Joe touched on both of them briefly, and so I'm gonna start with this one. You wrote this. I felt I was being taken It was such a toxic relationship. I felt I was being taken for granted after loving her for 3 years and not getting treated the same way she treats others. Even her friends she would show affection she wouldn't give to me anymore. Okay. Sorry, I read that a little poorly, but you get what I'm saying. You wrote it. So, here's something really important. Really, 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 really important about loving people and relationships. This applies to the people you are romantic with and to the people that are just friends. To truly love, Joe said, when you enter into that relationship, it can be very, very painful. You're opening up yourself to pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because to truly love is to become vulnerable to. When you decide, I love this person, you decide, I am vulnerable to them. There's a great story in the Bible. It's the first one, right at the beginning. Oh, actually, it's the second one. Right in the beginning, it's right in Genesis. Adam and Eve, right? They're naked without shame. And what that means is they were in paradise because they didn't have any shame between them. They were naked. In other words, fully vulnerable to each other. And they had never hurt each other. And it was perfect. And then this third party comes in, that was Satan, gave him the apple. Then what do? They clothed themselves. Why? Because they hurt each other. It wasn't even on purpose. They didn't set out to hurt each other, but they did. So if you want to claim that you love someone and you're going to have a relationship with them and it's going to last, you have to decide for yourself. Am I going to be vulnerable to this person or not? And if you look at that person, you say, I don't think I can be vulnerable to them. Then either you're not in a relationship that you should be in, or you have a background of being hurt that you need to solve.
Mm.
And both can be true. And it's worth examining both. Here's the thing. You said this, that you said this line that I just reread. You said she wouldn't give you that affection. So this is on your mind, right? This is on your mind. You're thinking about it. And then you say that you had a burst, an outburst. So you said, so you had a falling out. It was close to ending well. Then a third party got involved, and I said horrible things to her at this time. You said you were angry and jealous, and you called her some of the worst things you could think of. And you said what you knew would hurt her. You probably don't know why you did this, but the reason is there's a lot of people who do this, by the way. It's a well-studied thing. And one of the reasons is because they hurt you, but you were never you never resolved it. And so they hurt you, you never resolved it, it kept piling up, and then you had an outburst, right? Right? How do you solve that? The answer is in vulnerability. Not invulnerability. The answer is in the act of being vulnerable. And I know that's scary, and what I mean is this. If you are afraid of having a conversation with someone because you think it will end poorly, you have decided not to be vulnerable.
Mm.
Which means you have put a wall between you and the one you love. Because you're afraid that if you say the things that are on your mind, they will desert you. Or they will not love you the same way anymore. Or they're going to be mad at you. Or whatever. If you have that thought in your head, if you're afraid to approach your partner because you're afraid of what they're going to think, you will never be close enough to that person to love them fully. You have to make yourself fully vulnerable first before you can fully love. And here's the thing. Not everybody's worth being vulnerable for. And that's hard. That makes me want to cry.
Mm.
But the only reason is not because people are undeserving. It's because people don't know any better. They don't know how to love, and they don't know how to be good. and they just are where they're at in life, and they're toxic. And some people will change and grow, and some people won't. But if you're afraid of just talking to that person and settling it because you're worried about what they're going to say to you, or how they're going to pin it on you, or how they're going to, whatever it is, you've set a boundary that is your vulnerability in between you two. You're no longer naked without shame. You are. Here's the funny thing. In that same book, what do? Um, they cover themselves in fig leaves, which if you don't know anything about fig leaves, if you touch them, they make you break out in a rash.
Oof. Oof.
They cover themselves in fig leaves. It's like covering yourself in poison ivy.
Ouch.
On their genitals, right? So there's symbolism there.
Oh my.
There's a lot of symbolism there. And my point is to bring you into that symbolism so you can understand the wound that's there and how to address it. And that it needs to be addressed. Yeah, August, isn't that crazy? So that's really important. And I want you to take that forward into your future relationships, this knowledge, and recognize again, not everybody can handle this. So you have to find someone that can with you. Because I want the best for you, Science Rocks. I want the best for you. And that comes from the bottom of my heart. Because you're awesome and you deserve the best. And I think everybody does, but not everybody is the best. And I'm not saying you need to break up with this person. But what I am saying is to be vulnerable so that you don't get into that position of bursting out is important. And it's a hard lesson to learn because to be vulnerable is really scary because it means you're going to get hurt. And it means you're willing to get hurt for the sake of your relationship. That's what it actually means. What's your relationship worth to you? Is it worth getting hurt? Is it worth fighting for? It's like that romanticism of wanting to fight the dragon for the princess, or whoever it is, the damsel in distress. You want to fight for that which you love, and that's a good thing, and it's built into you, and it's a very beautiful thing. But in reality, that comes in the state of being and choosing to be vulnerable and take their pain and take the pain they're going to bring you. But again, you said it was such a toxic relationship. It was such a toxic relationship. If only you two were vulnerable, you could maybe have worked some of that toxicity out. To work toxicity out, you need to be able to be in it, be in the trenches and start scooping it out, you know? And to have those hard conversations and get hurt with them and recover with them and heal with them and create something that is pure and sacred and beautiful beyond anything that could have been created otherwise. And so that's an important lesson. That's an important lesson we have to learn, all of us. And it's scary. The last thing I want to talk about is someone who truly loves doesn't foster your shortcomings. They foster your goodness and the love that you share. Right? Someone who is truly loving. So if you want to be truly loving, you don't foster their shortcomings. You don't care about them. You don't care about them enough to lift them up. Does that make sense? Mm. Not that their shortcomings should be ignored completely, but they shouldn't get in the way of the relationship. and they shouldn't cause an outburst, and they shouldn't cause ever a toxic atmosphere. And where their goodness and love shines, you uplift that with all your being. Why? Because if you uplift their love and their goodness, both of you will become more loving and good. But if you spend time focusing on their problems and their sins and their issues in a way that doesn't intend to lift them up, but you in effect lift up the wrongs and make them the point of something they need to solve, you will destroy the relationship. Because just like Joe said, you will never be acceptable. They will never be acceptable to you. And so you have to examine them through that lens too. Examine yourself through that lens. Have you been the kind of person that always lifts up them when they love? Always lifts them up when they show their signs of goodness. And when they don't show them, it does not distract you from love. Does their shortcomings distract you from love? Then that's a place that needs to grow. Yeah, for sure. Do your shortcomings distract them from their love, their ability to love? If so, yeah, that's somewhere that needs to grow for them. And if you're able to talk to them and have those kinds of conversations and move forward in your relationships, I would say go for it, buddy. But if you don't think that they'll ever get to a point where your shortcomings are too big of a problem for them to love you through them, then that person doesn't love you. And you can't decide for yourself that you're going to be in a relationship with someone who isn't going to love you. You can't decide that. That's not your decision to make. And so I would say, in that case, you gotta let them go. But there you go. Those are my two thoughts. And I mean, obviously I hope the best for you. And whether it's this person or another person, I sincerely hope you find the person in your life who gives you pure love, true love, good love, love that is not distracted by the shortcomings of others, love that sees right through them and pierces through them and just rejoices in the you that you are. And that's a beautiful kind of love that you will rarely find. But if you find that, hold on to that. And that's what I hope for you. No matter who it is, that's what I hope for you. And that's what I hope you become. That's what I hope you become. That's what I got. Thanks, Joe. And thank you so much, Science Rocks. Thank you so much for the topic.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that would be a good place to leave it right there. Thank you so much for the topic. Thanks for letting us talk about it. Thank you for sharing. It takes a level of vulnerability just to share something this deep, to be submitted as a topic for, us to talk about. And I respect you a lot. Thank you for that.
Yeah, me too.
And hopefully some of the things we said can help you. And it gets tough, man, because sometimes we get all starry-eyed when we're in some kind of friendship or relationship where we want it to be romantic or whatever. We can get all googly-eyed about it, and we can lose sight of whether or not somebody is doing something that's hurtful to us. And I've been in that position many times with romantic partners and with friends also, where
Oh
I've
yeah.
gotten myself into situations where I'm being used or abused or whatever, right? And we can find ourselves in that situation and then be gaslit into believing that it's our fault, or
Mm.
believing that it's our problem and that the other person doesn't have to fix anything, but we have all the fixing to do. And, there can be
Mm.
all kinds of crazy that goes along with that. So
Yeah.
hopefully
I
we're
think there's a
able
lot
to
of
shed some light.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reconciliation needing to happen on both sides of this relationship, and I think you're really awesome, Science Rocks. I think you're so
Hmm.
awesome.
Yep.
So, and
Yep.
there's nothing wrong with needing reconciliation. I mean, all of us make mistakes. All of us do
That's
terrible
absolutely
things
right.
sometimes. I mean, that's
Absolutely
just
right.
where you get. And so, yeah.
Sometimes we don't even mean to, and we do hurtful things, right?
Oh
Sometimes
yeah.
we do mean to do hurtful things. And, hey, either way, reconciliation is, good to at least attempt. We can't always be reconciled with another person, but we can
Mm.
repent for what we've done
Mm-hmm.
wrong.
That's right.
And we can forgive for what they've done wrong, right? But that's how we heal ourselves. Healing a relationship then takes it to the next level, and both people have to be on board with that.
Yes.
I've also been in situations where I've been wanting to reconcile, and that other person wanted to use that as a tool for further
Oh, yeah.
manipulation.
Yeah. Been there too.
Mm-hmm.
And and when you see it, you're like, how messed up is that?
Well, how
You're
messed
like, what
up
do I
is it?
say to this person?
First of all, how
Yeah.
messed up is that? The second, how messed up is it that I would go right along with it
Mm-hmm.
without
Yeah,
without
that's true.
acknowledging the truth of
Mm-hmm.
what was
Because
happening?
you're afraid to make the statements necessary
Mm-hmm.
because your vulnerability, well, again, yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's
yeah, you get
crazy.
pretty messed up
Our
sometimes.
hearts are complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So our hearts are complicated when they're intact. Just wait till it gets broken. See how complicated it gets then.
Oh, oof.
And I think all of us have dealt with heartache and heartbreak and all that kind of stuff. We've all
Mm.
been broken to some degree or another. And it's hard because, you know, it gets really complicated sometimes, and it gets really hard to navigate. But I'll tell you this, your heart is beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
intact or broken. It's still beautiful. It's uniquely yours. And it's uniquely necessary for the world we live in,
Mm-hmm.
for those around you. So, science, thank you. Thank you for the topic. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for being who you are and being willing to share your life with the lives around you. So, I applaud you, and you're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's right.
if you have anything further, feel free to reach out. And for any of you who have a topic you'd like us to talk about, you can go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and we'd be happy to do your topic. If this show has made an impact on you, consider inviting people you know. You
Mm-hmm.
know, consider sending someone to the website or to the YouTube channel, whatever. You can consider it. Whatever, we'd be happy to share in the lives of the people you love as well. And we'd be happy for you to share us with those people as well. And we love you guys. We love spending this time. It's like my favorite part of the week, to spend time with you guys on Don't Worry Wednesday, to talk through some of this stuff and to help and to just try my best to show that you're worth loving, because you are. You are worth loving, every single one of you, whether you're here in the
Mm-hmm.
chat, whether you're lurking, whether you're listening to this after the stream, whatever. You are worth
Or you,
loving,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and we love you. And that's why we do this show. We do this show because we love you guys and because we want to help in any way we possibly can. And hopefully, some of what we've shared is helpful. And again, we're not therapists and we're not a substitute for that. And sometimes therapy is necessary or at least highly recommended in order to get through some kind of challenge. So, but at any rate, you guys are amazing. We will be back next Wednesday on Don't Worry Wednesday. Same time, same channel, and yeah, I don't think there's a show set up for next week, but I'll get one set up before then. So anyway, and we'll try and fix our chat too. We'll see if we can do that. But
Hopefully we can.
Yes, hopefully we can. So you guys are amazing. We love you, and thank you so much for your support. And we couldn't do this show without you. But we love you, and we'll see you next week. So until then, have a great time, and we'll see you next week on Don't Worry Wednesday. We love you guys.
Love you guys. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Peace.